of when you think of a scrappy project? Do you think of something chaotic? Do you think of something cheap? Be honest, do you think of something that you'd happily donate but never wear yourself? Don't worry, I think that's a common feeling. But today I'm going to give you 5 tips for making scrappy projects that you'll actually want to keep and wear yourself. Hello, and welcome to Bla Bla Black Sheep, a weekly yarny podcast where I, Sarah Korth of SEK Handmade, talk all things yarny. If you have something you'd like to talk about, leave a comment below, or there's a link in the show notes where you can ask a question anonymously. I'd love to talk about what you want to talk about. Before we get in too deep, I want to say a happy early Valentine's Day. I've worn my red lipstick. Mwah! In honor of the red and pink holiday. Honestly, I'm not a big Valentine's person, but the former elementary school teacher in me still likes to give a little nod to holidays. Before we dive into my 5 tips, I want to highlight some small businesses. I have on my Unity cowl today, and what I've done is I've folded the whole thing in half and then turned just the front of the collar, the ribbing down. This really highlights some colors that I think were fun and go with my pink and red theme here. And then honestly, I was a little nervous that I'd get my red lipstick all over my cowl, which is why I folded the front down. But it's actually kind of a nice way to keep the back of your head and your ears warm without having too much bulk right around your face. For my yarns here, I used a whole bunch of scraps. This is a scrappy project. The whole Unity collection is designed to be worked with scraps, but also make a really lovely item that you'd like to wear. For my scraps, I had lots of Malabrigo Rios and Madelinetosh Tosh vintage langabouts. They work really nicely together, and so that's what I use for my scrappy yarns all throughout this cowl. My main color that my ribbing is in is from Plymouth Select. It is their worsted merino superwash. This is the color dark gray or 8. Sometimes they just say their numbers. For earrings today, I have these gorgeous earrings on. They're like a little bit of stained glass that's iridescent. I love them so much. They're a little on the heavy side, so I don't usually wear them all day long, but they're so pretty. These are by Aquarius Encounters. There's links to the pattern bundle for the Unity patterns, which comes with a bag, a traditional cowl, a twisted cowl, and a coffee cozy. This is extra great for using up scraps. I think I figured out no more than 16 yards needed per scrap section there. So great way to use up little bits and bobs. So links to that, links to the yarn, links to the maker of the earrings. I think she does a lot of one-of-a-kind kind of stuff, but you can go check out all of that stuff. Links right in the show notes is what I'm trying to say. You don't need to hunt anything down. I've got it all right there for you. All right, let's dive into our topic. We're going to talk about 5 ways to make some scrappy projects that you will love to wear. I think the unifying thing here is a little plan ahead of time goes a long way to making a project you're really going to like. So my first tip is to have a color palette. Don't just grab any random skeins of yarn you have laying about. Really take out all of your scraps, look at them all together, and decide on some colors that are going to look really nicely together. With this, you could pick team colors. That's a great way to use up scraps and make something fun and meaningful for someone. You can make a fade. So even if the colors aren't in the same color family, you can still fade from dark to light or light to dark. And that really helps it look super nice and really wearable. If you're like me and you have a lot of the same colors that you use over and over again, you can go ahead and pick one of those colors or maybe even a couple of those colors that really coordinate well and just use those colors. So let's say you are really drawn to, we'll do my colors, teal and purple and pink. Go ahead and grab all your teals and purples and pinks and use them in a project so that they can all coordinate together. You might have that random skein of like a orange. If it does not look nice with your color palette, don't use it on this project. Tip number 2 is to add a unifying color. That is what I have done with my Unity cowl here. My gray runs all throughout the whole cowl so that even though all of the other colors are only used once, it really blends them all together and creates a cohesive project. I think we get in our head that if a project is scrappy, it has to be made all of scraps and that we have to use all of a scrap for it to count. If you come from a more planned point of view, knowing that you can gather things that look nicely together, add an additional skein that isn't a scrap, and still make a really nice, cohesive project that you're gonna wear, I think that is more important than just voraciously using up scraps that end up being projects that you don't really like. Tip number 3 is to create repetition. When we repeat things, our brain senses organization, so it helps projects look less chaotic. If you have a color that you really love, instead of taking that scrap ball of yarn and using it all up in one big chunk in one place, if you can place it in several places throughout a project, it'll really unify the project, even if it's several small scraps that are used several times. Number 4 rides right on the coattails of number 3, and that is to create stripes. I think when we see a project, we often think, I'm going to make that exactly how it was designed. And that can be lovely and wonderful. But the easiest thing you can do to any pattern is add stripes. Go ahead and look carefully at the pattern once you've purchased. Notice repetitions of stitches, and those are great places to add in stripes. Then you can add in your scraps in intentional, visually pleasing places and create a totally scrappy project that looks really, really nice. You don't even have to do this with small projects. This can be with big projects like a whole entire sweater. Again, though, I'd like to allude back to suggestion number 3 and plan it out. Instead of going a big stripe of one color that you've got a lot of, a little stripe of another color that you don't have much of, a medium stripe, and switching back and forth until you just use up the colors, go ahead and make a plan to reuse a color several times. Even if the sizes of your stripes change a little bit, using several of the colors multiple times will add uniformity, even if your stripes aren't uniform width. And suggestion number 5 is to use scraps in color work. Again, I think we feel like for a project to be a scrappy project, we have to only use scraps of yarn. And guys, you are in charge. You can do whatever you want and call it a scrappy project. Go ahead and take those bits and bobs of yarn and add them to other projects that may be mostly not scrappy yarn. That way you can use up the yarn you love and end up with a project that you think is stunning and that you'll actually wear. I have 3 little bonus tips for using up scraps. Number 1 is make a memory project. I really believe that our scraps of yarn have memories of not only the projects that we made, but also what we were doing at the time when we made that project. It can be really fun and special to have a project that is more chaotic, but has a lot of memories in it. Just the other day, I was noticing that I have a lot of very tiny scraps of fingering weight yarn, and I was thinking it might be fun to make a bunch of little granny squares and kind of just keep it as a project I'm constantly working on to use up those last little bits of scraps that I just can't part with because the yarn is so special and it evokes memories of projects I've made. So while that project would include a whole ton of things that don't necessarily go together, it will contain memories that will still make me really happy. Do I take whatever this becomes out and about? Maybe not, but maybe it sits on the back of my chair where I can gaze at it lovingly, or it's something I wrap up in when I'm home. Another great way to use up small scraps is to just do small projects. Lots of things like coasters, earbud cases, there's a cute little glasses case thing that's going around, small bowls, ornaments and decorations, fun flower what are those called? Embellishments. All of those things can be made with really small bits of yarn that's left over and can be a great way to start on some Christmas presents, get going on making decorations for your house for next winter, or even the springtime if you're going to make some flowers. You can often finish a whole entire small project with one piece of scrap yarn, and then it ends up looking really nice and you've used up your yarn. My last little bonus tip is to make pom-poms and tassels. Guys, pom-poms and tassels are so much fun. This is a great way when you finish a project and you have some yarn left over to just make a tassel or two or a pom-pom to go along with it and add it to the project and finish off all your scraps. But it can also be another kind of memory project, really fun way to decorate a room. I have this picture in my brain, I don't even think I saved it, of a stick, an actual like fun, pretty stick that the person has hung a bunch of like pom-poms and tassels and beads and buttons at like different heights to make this really fun, bright wall hanging. And I keep thinking I'm going to do it. That would be a great use for my scraps. All right, I have a couple real quick announcements. Who Gives a Scrap is going on right now. This is just a fun, free event where we're encouraging each other to make some scrappy projects. You can work on things from the Unity collection or something you've had laying around. It's just a great community connection and encouragement to plow through some of those scraps and make them into something beautiful. My Unity bundle has been released for almost a week now, and now I'm going to start releasing the individual patterns. Aside from the cozy, that's exclusive to the bundle. Tomorrow, the bag is releasing. If you'd like an extra special discount code on the Unity bag, be sure to go down before tomorrow afternoon, like the 13th at 4:30 Central Time is when my emails go out. If you sign up before then, you can get the discount code to get a little bit extra off this super cute bag pattern. I hope that all of these tips and tricks and ideas have given you some inspiration to go through all of the scrap yarn you might have laying around and come up with a really beautiful project that you love and wear. I would be ever so grateful if you would like this video. Comment below how you feel about scrappy patterns. I'd love to know. If I didn't say subscribe, also subscribe, turn on notifications, and maybe even share this with a friend who has a big scrappy stash. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll be right back here next week. And until then, happy crafting.